Happy Kwanzaa, everyone. My name is Miss ShaRhonda, and this is Mr. Dawson.
Hey, how's it going? This is Brian.
And we are part of the Brondihouse Academy that does teaching and trainings for Black kids to understand, and adults,
Right.
to understand more of our history, our rich history, and where we come from and where we should go. And so Kwanzaa is an important time for us. And we thought the best way for us to honor Kwanzaa would be to think of individual people that embody each day and the tradition and the meaning behind that person in history. So again, we're living through this present, but also talking and giving honor and respect to our ancestors who came before that embodied these things.
Right. So today we're going to talk about day 2 of Kwanzaa, which is Kujichagulia. Kujichagulia. That's one of the harder words that we have to throw in there.
Thank you, Brian, for saying it.
I know people are like, wait, how do you say that? It's Kujichagulia.
Mm-hmm.
And that is about self-determination. It's about defining who you are as a person, as a group, as a race, and the importance of that. And so the person that we chose who kind of embodies that,
it's Marcus Garvey. And so many people talk about Marcus Garvey and all the work that he's done that I think it's almost become generalized, like Dr. King. Dr. King is now somewhat connected to his speech and the I Have a Dream, but it was so much more than that. And I think that same is true with Marcus Garvey. And the thing about Marcus Garvey that really embodies this and what he did that was revolutionary in the diaspora for the first time was he talked about not only the wonderfulness of Black people and our culture, but the need for us to have nation building and to have community building and to say that we need to, yes, we need to own businesses, but if you're going to do a construction business, we also need people that are mining the minerals and the ingredients and truck drivers, and that the system of Black ownership and of Pan-Africanism is inclusive of nation building and of business building, and it means that all of us have a role in it, and that all of us should have ownership and I guess destiny, right, to determine what we want this to look like, right? So when we have countries like what do we want our flag to look like? He came up with the red, black, and green flag because he said we can't be a people or a nation if we don't have a flag, and that came from Marcus Garvey, right? So he said the red, black, and green. He set up so many businesses, and so much of what we say now and so much of the successes that we've had as a people and the things that we kind of say and not even realizing, like buy Black.
Right. A lot of that definitely sprang forward from the Garvey movement. And so when people look at our community now, that's why it's so very important where when we move forward, we look at systems and processes and we understand and not only talk about, oh, well, this singular issue or this one thing, but we begin to understand the kind of etymology of these things and bring them back and say, well, if there are white architects of Black education, can we just tell our kids to read more books? And, is the answer just to have them do an extra hour of homework? If, the origin of Black health disparities is because the healthcare industry did not start with Black people in mind. And so whether you look at it as negligence or malice, self-determination says, let's look at these things from a Black perspective and say, let's begin and say, what would be best for us? And work from that crux and move forward and say, well, if we were to design systems with us in mind, first and foremost, what would that look like? Whether it's education, healthcare, employment, whatever, because that's how you get to self-determination.
And even just in this conversation, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Marcus Garvey was inspired by Booker T. Washington. He actually came to the United States to look at Booker T. Washington's model at Tuskegee. And a lot of times people shit on Booker T. Washington and think that he was this apologist um, and didn't think that Black people were equal, but that's not at all true. What he was doing was, again, nation building. And so Tuskegee came from like, what do we have? What skills do we have? The George Washington Carver, we have our own scientists, bring him in, let him be the head of the science department. We have people that are farmers, bring them in, let them teach farming. We have so much knowledge and so much skill within our own community that we should be doing it. And not only that, but what Booker T. Washington did at Tuskegee was, when you got enrolled in the university, you were also part of university building, right? So everybody had a job to do to help build up Tuskegee, in addition to just learning, right? It's this whole system. It's like, we need a new building, so you're in.
Right.
This is
And everybody's, all right, well, this is your day to, be on the construction squad. And so I think sometimes we look at our community and we feel as though the challenge is so daunting and it's so overwhelming that it's like, what can I do? Or we look outside of our community and say, well, we have an issue. Well, who can give us a grant to fix this issue? Or, we have a problem. And so we have to look outside of our community and hope that someone comes in, not understanding that part of, Kujichagulia and saying self-determination. Well, when you give that power to someone else and say, well, can you give us a grant? Well, they say, well, we might want you to do it a certain way. And that might work for their community, but then all the hoops that you have to jump through and all the strings that have been tied in order for you to get that money or in order for you to get that grant, then you might say, oh, but now I'm going to have to do things in a way that might be ineffective or even harmful for my community. And so what people like, Carter G. Woodson and Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington were saying, well, sometimes we have to do it on our own. And it's okay to start small because we have a relatively small community and we often know ourselves best. The people who are on the ground often know what the people on the ground need. And so thinking that, oh, it has to be so large, or, maybe Microsoft is going to save us, or Amazon is going to give us some money and get out of it. I mean, sometimes it is just the people on the ground rolling up their sleeves and saying, what can we do?
What do we have? What can we do with what we have? And making the best of that. And I think that is one of the beautiful aspects of our culture as Black people, is we are just a resourceful bunch. And I think we've gotten away from that somewhat as we start to be exposed, like you said, to different foundations and different people coming in, that we forget how much power and how much agency we have within ourselves to create our own institutions. And maybe it's not going to look like, Tuskegee doesn't look like Harvard, and that's okay, right? It's for us. And so today, on this day of Kwanzaa, we want to honor Marcus Garvey for his vision of nation building, for giving us the red, black, and green flag, for giving us an identity as Black people that span from Africa to the Americas. And also to Booker T. Washington for being, I think, one of the greatest examples of what nation building looks like in the United States, and what it means for us to determine our own education and create our own education programs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So thank you, everyone. And remember, second day, Kujichagulia.
I'm not going to even try to say that word.
All right.
All right. Ashe.
Ashe.